Potential employer flew me out for interview, cancels return flight. A company I was interested in just flew me out for an interview. It was on the other side of the country, so they paid for my flight and hotel. Unfortunately, the interview went disastrously. I blew every question, and I could tell that they didn't like me personally. When I got to the airport for my return flight, I could not get my boarding pass. The agent told me that the buyer canceled my ticket for a partial refund. Despite my persistence, they assured me that there wasn't a mistake. I called the company to tell them there was a mix-up, but they just told me they decided they were going in a different direction. I told them it was fine that I didn't get the job, but I didn't have a flight home. They repeated the same, going in a different direction, phrase and told me they couldn't help me. After calling back 3 or 4 times, they told me to stop harassing them. I'm completely broke due to poor financial decisions. That's a different story, so I can't afford a last-minute plane ticket. It doesn't help that this is a small airport, so ticket prices are high. So basically, I've been stuck at the airport for the past 3 days. Yesterday, my credit card started being declined, so I've had to eat scraps from other customers. Fortunately, I do have an existing, albeit awful, job when I get home. And I finally got a friend of a friend to agree to pick me up and drive me to a Greyhound bus station in another town. So while I'm sitting in the airport waiting for him, with a lot of time to think, I want to ask a few questions that have been spinning around my mind. Seriously, what the heck? Is this normal for an employer to do? The more I think about, the more I'm thinking I must have said something offensive to somebody in an interview. Is there any way to ask them what I said, so that I can avoid this mistake in the future?
No, this is completely unacceptable. Sure, the interview didn't work out, but screwing the candidate because of that is just so bad. Do I have any recourse against this employer? As a legal question which is going to depend on your jurisdiction and that of the employer. You'd need to talk to an actual lawyer. As others have commented, independent of the legal aspect, naming and shaming is an option. I would very rarely advocate that behavior, but in this case I think it's worth making other candidates aware of the risk they take interviewing with this company. However, make at least a nominal attempt to reconcile things with the company first. The more I think about, the more I'm thinking I must have said something offensive to somebody in an interview. Is there any way to ask them what I said, so that I can avoid this mistake in the future? You can ask, at which point there are 2 possibilities. This was actually a mistake and/or more sensible heads have prevailed at the company, in which case I'd hope they'd refund your expenses and the like. They seriously meant to do this, in which case I doubt they'll answer. I honestly cannot think of anything which would cause me to act in this way towards a candidate. There's plenty you could say which would cause me to terminate the interview on the spot and walk you out the door, but I'm not going to screw someone in a way which would reflect so negatively on the company for any future candidates.
I've swapped horror interview stories with other developers and managers, but I've never heard of this happening. Maybe, but only blame yourself for blowing the interview. Don't blame yourself for the return plane ticket fiasco. This is likely a single person making a big mistake. The ones that covered for that mistake afterwards, I assume you talked to multiple people there, also seem culpable to me at this point, but IANAL1. If you made offensive remarks during the interview, I would want you not just out of my face, but also out of my town. I would abruptly, but politely, end the interview. It wouldn't occur to me to cancel your return flight. If you totally lied about your experience, I might recommend to my company that we ask you to compensate us for the plane ticket and hotel. But I don't expect most companies ever would pursue it because of the bad PR that could come from it.
What the company did was in extremely poor taste, so much so that I wonder if there might be something more happening, especially since you said you bombed the interview, both technically and personally. In your job application, were you truthful and honest? Did you lie or seriously exaggerate about your skills, experience or history? Was there a phone screen before the interview trip? Why did the phone screen go well enough to merit an interview, then the interview went so poorly? Basically, if you were not the job applicant you said you are, if you lied on your resume, or had someone coach you through a phone screen, and then were discovered in the interview, I think the company would have a real right to be extremely pissed off, and possible a legal right due to fraud to claw back some of their expenditures. If you are confident everything on your end was honest and level, and you just had a really bad interview for a job that was a poor fit, then you probably have a strong legal case and the ability to create a PR and recruiting nightmare for the company. If you do decide to make it a public relations recruiting situation, you might consider making it about the individuals involved as well as the company. Companies can be faceless, nameless, bureaucratic beasts, but if you name the HR recruiter and hiring manager involved, and make them responsible for their own decisions, it might be more effective. Check with a lawyer and be careful to avoid unjust defamation. After a while, another possibility that occurred to me is that this might be an effective way for someone from the company to embezzle money. They look for candidates who have bombed, then cancel the return ticket, routing the refund to their own account rather than the company. The company wouldn't know that the candidate was left stranded, and whoever rerouted the money would have pocketed the cost of a refundable ticket. If you have only spoken to one person at the company so far, who kept repeating the same other direction line over and over, they may be the embezzler, hoping you will just go away. You need to speak to at least a second person at the company, and get an acknowledgement that the company really did cancel your ticket. Otherwise, this may be part of a much more serious crime.
In fact, as HR should be booking the flights, but HR would not be conducting the interview, someone has gone out of their way to cancel that flight. It may even be that the sponsor has been fired and had their approval rights revoked. After all, if they could not screen you out, their own bona fides are then highly suspect. This is actually quite hard to do and would have left a wide trail. That they used refundable tickets is significant. You bombed at the interview. Was the position misrepresented or in any way, bait and switch? Sometimes the copy for the job is garbage. Otherwise I would invoice for time and expense, and then sue for liquidated damages. OP should consult with a lawyer first. They are very good at this kind of billing.
What would you answer to this question? Please write under this video.